A girl stands barefoot in the middle of the road, covered in blood. A car barrels toward her, but the girl shows no reaction. The people in the car are far from good. The villain glanced around at the desolate surroundings, thinking, "This is a delivery right to our doorstep." These thugs make their living by forcefully taking what they want, but this time, they've messed with the one person they should never have crossed. Kyung-hee, who's in the backseat and struggling to stay alive, can't stand seeing them get rough with the girl and tries to intervene. Her response? A brutal beating.
The hell were you doing out there?
Let go.
Gowns.
I warned you.
This girl's car-destroying skills are absolutely top tier. By the time Kyung-hee regains consciousness, the car is totaled, blood everywhere, and the scene outside is even worse. The once cocky leader is now lying on the ground, barely clinging to life. The girl is about to put him out of his misery, but Kyung-hee quickly stops her and calls for help. Once that's done, Kyung-hee thinks of fleeing, but when she sees the girl's torn clothes and the signs of injury, she can't bring herself to leave her behind. She decides to take the girl with her. However, on the way, the girl suddenly collapses. Thankfully, a man arrives just in time, and together they manage to get the girl to safety. Even luckier, the man happens to be a veterinarian with exceptional skills. The man had once treated sick cows on Kyung-hee's farm, but the girl's injuries caught them completely off guard. She'd been shot, her back riddled with deep bullet fragments, and yet, despite the severity of her wounds, she seemed perfectly fine. But what happened next was even more unbelievable. As he removes the bullet fragments, the girl's body begins healing at an astonishingly visible rate. In just a day, she's completely restored. Kyung-hee brings her back to the farm, and as they travel, the girl's wide-eyed curiosity is hard to miss. It's as if she's seeing everything for the first time: the breeze, the clouds, even the animals along the road. The truth? She's never seen any of it before. From the moment she was born, she's never left the experimental facility. Yes, she is Sia, the second-generation witch, and the sister of the legendary first-generation witch, Jae-yoon. She's also the most powerful genetically modified human ever created. Not long ago, the facility was attacked by a mysterious organization. After a massacre, Sia is the only survivor, having no concept of the outside world. Sia is lucky to have crossed paths with Kyung-hee. Kyung-hee also has a younger brother, Dae-gil, and the two have been inseparable, growing up on the farm together. However, Sia nearly mistakes Dae-gil for an enemy when he jokingly teases her.
Seriously, you can let go.
Kyung-hee quickly finished preparing the meal, and Sia looked on in surprise, while Dae-gil couldn't resist joking that his sister was making dark cuisine. But as the two siblings argue, Sia starts wolfing down everything in sight: rice, soup, everything, all at once. When Kyung-hee turns around, the table is completely cleaned out. Pleased with her cooking being well received, Kyung-hee invites Sia to stay with them as her sister, but as soon as Kyung-hee leaves, Sia suddenly suffers a painful headache, followed by an uncontrollable nosebleed. The pain triggers an overwhelming surge of energy, distorting the very fabric of time and space around her. Meanwhile, outside the farm, the gang that had kidnapped Kyung-hee shows up again. Kyung-hee is ready for them. She picks up her father's hunting rifle and aims it at the group. These local thugs have been terrorizing the area for a long time. The previous kidnapping was a plot to take over the farm, and this time, their boss has come in person, determined to get what he wants. Several of the thugs are ruthless, and soon Kyung-hee and Dae-gil are subdued. But just then, Kyung-hee freezes, staring off into the distance. Following her gaze, they see Sia, standing eerily on the roof, like a ghost. The boss thinks she's threatening to commit suicide, and is about to try and talk her down, but Sia leaps off the roof without a second thought.
Hey, whoa! Hey! Convince her to come down! That? You're gonna fall! Jesus!
She lands without a scratch. The gang is stunned, and Sia slowly advances toward them.
What do you want?
This has to be the worst day for these thugs. What started as an attempt to bully a farm family has turned into a nightmare. They've picked a fight with a living demon. Xiao raises her hand, and one by one, she moves toward the gang boss. The boss is completely shaken. The power radiating from her is something he can't even comprehend. This is Xia, the second-generation witch. Kyung-hee didn't want to escalate things, so she rushed over, pleading for mercy. Seeing that the gang leader was already terrified, Kyung-hee slapped him awake, and only then did they stagger and escape the farm. Meanwhile, at a base somewhere in the U.S., a woman had just finished a cleanup mission. Solo operations were nothing new to her. For Jo-hyun, a gunshot wound was no big deal after all. She was the leader of the elimination squad, but as a first-generation modified human, the real pain came from the strain on her body every time she used her abilities. Jo-hyun also possessed an intellect and memory far beyond ordinary humans. Her next mission was to eliminate the witch, Xia. However, the moment Jo-hyun landed in Korea, she was targeted. Her subordinate, Tom, sped up to shake off their pursuers. The enemy lost sight of their target and was left staring blankly in the car when Tom suddenly slammed into them. The two men got out of the car. It turned out they were from the local elimination squad. Seeing Jo-hyun's refusal to back down, they made the first move, but Tom handled them with ease. Clearly, these two were no match for Tom. Jo-hyun stood by the entire time, watching the fight unfold without lifting a finger. After the battle, the two continued to track Xia's location, but they weren't the only ones after the witch. The four people in the car had the same goal and they were all real killing machines. They were a bit smarter than the others, and their key to success was the gang leader. He was the only one who had witnessed the witch's power firsthand. Humiliated, he began digging into Xia's background online, but all that information was intercepted by a mysterious organization.
Hey, that's a new phone.
The four were now planning to use the gang leader to take the next steps in their operation. As for Xia, she was getting along quite well with the siblings. Dae-gil, upon learning of Xia's terrifying abilities, wasn't scared at all. In fact, he was thrilled. How cool would it be to be friends with someone like Superman? He even wanted Xia to appear on a show. If she could become as famous as the previous generation's witch, maybe he'd get his own taste of fame too. But Xia was more interested in eating. Seeing that she had nearly wiped out all the food at home, Kyung-hee decided to take the two of them to the county's supermarket for a shopping trip. It was Xia's first time in a supermarket, and to her, it wasn't just a store, it was a sacred place. There were all kinds of delicious foods on display, and plenty of samples to try. She didn't just taste them all, she also piled them into the shopping cart as if there was no tomorrow. Seeing this, Dae-gil realized they were headed for bankruptcy and quickly grabbed Xia to drag her back home. Back at the farm, Kyung-hee seemed troubled, while Xia and Dae-gil were going wild at the supermarket. Jo-hyun had already found her and exposed Xia's true identity. Although Kyung-hee now knew how dangerous Xia could be, through their time together, she had come to understand that Xia was inherently innocent and pure-hearted. She could never betray her. Kyung-hee quickly told Dae-gil to take Xia and flee. At the same time, the gang leader had returned to the farm with reinforcements. Kyung-hee came out to face the gang leader, armed with a gun. This time, with the support of 4 enhanced individuals, the gang leader didn't hesitate for a second and pulled the trigger.
Die.
Dae-gil, unable to leave his sister to face the danger alone, quickly gave Xia the directions to escape and rushed back. But in doing so, he inadvertently revealed Xia's location. A sniper, stationed 100 meters away, had received the order, if the target was left alone, they were to open fire and eliminate her. After the explosion, the long-haired girl with superpowers quickly pinpointed the sniper's position. She drew her twin blades and headed straight for him. A hand-to-hand fight between a sniper and an assassin was bound to be a one-sided battle. As expected, once the sniper lost his range advantage, he was left defenseless, getting beaten relentlessly. With a smooth combo of moves, the long-haired girl swiftly took him down, but just as the victory screen was about to close, suddenly it was revealed that the missile hit which, Xia, was also there to take revenge on the sniper. However, the long-haired girl had beaten her to it.
Look who it is.
Efficient and precise, this was the power of a witch. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Jo-hyun and Tom had arrived, signaling that a fierce battle was inevitable. After the short-haired girl cleared the field with a single move, the remaining three launched a full-on assault on Jo-hyun. This was a battle between S-class individuals. Although Jo-hyun and Tom were skilled marksmen, their opponents were too fast, dodging and weaving, making it nearly impossible to land a hit, even when a bullet connected. With the strength of a second-gen modified human's body, as long as it wasn't a direct headshot, it wouldn't pose a serious threat. Soon, one of the enemies got up close to Jo-hyun. However, this gave her the opportunity to take them out one by one. She successfully eliminated one, but Tom couldn't withstand the short-haired girl's attack. A swift combo quickly rendered him unable to fight back. As she was about to pursue, Jo-hyun fired a shot to cover him, but the second-gen's regenerative abilities were terrifying. Handling one opponent was hard enough for Jo-hyun, let alone two. Her stamina was slowly running out, and despite giving it her all, she was overpowered. Unable to deal with the two attackers, surrounded from both sides, Jo-hyun finally fell. Still, taking on 1v3 and managing to take out one of them was no small feat, and Jo-hyun could still hold her head high. The man was about to finish her off, but just then, Tom suddenly exploded with force, using his last bit of strength to stab the man. Then, he gave an international gesture and fell silent. At that moment, the protagonist appeared. Xia, dragging the long-haired girl behind her, walked slowly onto the farm, clearly unconcerned about the two S-class warriors before her. She calmly approached Kyung-hee, gazing at the lifeless siblings on the ground. A deep, indescribable pain welled up inside her. Perhaps it was the time spent together that made her grow fond of the siblings. She had never experienced such separation before losing someone. She needed to release this pain. Anyone who tries to stop her will surely get hurt.
I'll be damned. It is you.
Xia's goal was clear. The gang leader was the one responsible for Kyung-hee and the siblings' deaths. This time, she would show no mercy. The intense pain made the gang leader, struggling to survive, reveal his true form. No wonder he had been so arrogant. He had also undergone modifications by the four-man team, but it was still too primitive. Suddenly, a loud whooshing sound rang out from behind. Xia casually waved her hand, effortlessly neutralizing the threat. The short-haired girl launched another attack. She was indeed powerful, but what good was that? In the face of overwhelming strength, all resistance was futile. Xia manipulated her opponent's body with ease, striking once, twice, and finally driving the blade into her neck. In that moment, the short-haired girl finally understood the true meaning of the gap in power. Xia effortlessly picked her up and tossed her, sending her flying 10 meters away before falling silent. He used every ounce of his strength to unleash his ultimate move, but this desperate final attack couldn't even scratch Xia. With just a look, the stones in the air began to shatter and crumble, and the very fabric of space seemed to freeze in that moment. The man wasn't willing to accept defeat, but what came next would be his final breath. The short-haired girl, once so arrogant, was now filled with fear. She instinctively began to retreat.
You really came?
That's right. The person who arrived was none other than the first generation witch, Gu Jiayun. She glanced at the short-haired girl on the ground but didn't pay much attention. Instead, she greeted Xiao with a smile. The short-haired girl was curious. How could someone who had lived in an experimental facility since birth have an old acquaintance from many years ago?
She's my sister. I told you guys to get her out, not to kill her.
Jiayun,
Gu Jiayun then revealed the truth to her sister. It turned out that all these second-generation modified humans had been arranged by her to test Xia's abilities. At first, she wasn't sure about Xia's identity, but after surviving the purge and escaping the facility unscathed, plus everything that happened today, Gu Jiayun was now certain this was her biological sister. Moreover, Gu Jiayun knew that Xia's consciousness was connected to their mother. If they worked together, they would surely find her mother, but Xia wasn't interested in that. She turned away and walked toward the lifeless bodies of Kyung-hee and her brother, the pain in her chest making her feel the loss of family for the first time. Taking advantage of Xia's emotional moment, Gu Jiayun quickly injected her with a sedative, and Xia collapsed to the ground. Gu Jiayun then carried her sister away from the scene. Once they were out of sight, Zhou Haiyan and Tom both got up. It turned out they had been playing dead. Looking up, a new group of people appeared on the rooftop. It seemed this was all part of the plan. Meanwhile, on a private island villa in the sea, Dr. Beck sensed that the sisters had finally met. She knew the witch would come looking for her soon, but she also had her own trump card.